Hey guys, welcome back. Sports with Mono and Mono, 62519. Steve,
Hi,
welcome.
hi everybody. Welcome back to the show on a blistering hot day, but the sun has seemed to come out finally.
That's right. Haven't seen that sun in a while in New
Forgot what it
Jersey.
looked like.
Yep. So listen, we could always start off with there's a lot to talk about, but there's a lot to talk about. So, where do you want to start, Steve?
Let's go with Major League Baseball.
Okay.
Let's talk about the New York Metropolitans
Oh,
and the consistency in the mismanagement of this organization. It's quite startling.
yep.
What are your thoughts on the
Well, listen,
circus?
I was one of the guys that defended Callaway a couple of weeks ago, and he thought he was getting canned, and I said, no, they're going to keep him. And they kept him, but he's losing control, and his team is on a spiral downstairs that's unstoppable. So, what do you do now? What if you're Brody? What do you do?
Well, the big move, obviously, is you really want to go to a 82-year-old pitching coach that hasn't been in the major leagues since, I want to say 1999, something along those lines.
He was the manager when Cal Ripken broke Lou Gehrig's streak.
I
Let's bring
get
that
it.
up.
I'm not dismissing this guy's baseball knowledge, and, he could be the pitching whisperer. Who knows? But let's be real here. He's 82 years old.
Exactly.
Brody is, I don't know if he's panicking, but it seems to be making some moves. He cleaned house with the coaching staff.
Who'd
Like,
they fire? Dave Island was
right,
He got canned too.
because Dave Island doesn't really know anything about pitching because he's only been the pitching coach on two World Series winners. And
Exactly.
his pitcher last year, Jacob DeGrom, by the way, won the National
Cy
League
Young.
Cy Young.
Okay.
So let's make Dave Island the scapegoat here.
And bring in Phil Regan.
And bring in Phil and
Alright.
so the point is, like you said, I think Callaway, he had an incident with a beat writer a couple days ago. It's trending very badly towards the New York Mets
Yep.
for a hot summer.
And I'm going to tell you, I'm not defending this guy anymore. He's lost control of this team. He doesn't have any concept of his pitching staff. And if we think that Phil Regan's going to come in and turn this pitching staff around, you still got Jagom, you still got Syndergaard, but what else you got?
Well, the other thing too,
Vargas, he went off on this guy. He wanted to beat up a beat writer, and
yeah, but the other thing too is Brody apparently. So when you say Callaway doesn't really have control of this team, so it just came out I think today or yesterday that
upstairs was calling the plays.
upstairs is calling the plays, reminiscent of George Steinbrenner calling the phone and asking Stump Merrill to insert Bobby Meacham or something at shortstop. I mean, it's snowballing here.
Yes, it
Where
is.
I've talked to some Met fans and they are disgusted, and it seems like another year is going to be by the wayside. So. I predicted Callaway would be gone by the All-Star break. I think with the moves that they've made, if the ship doesn't get righted soon, I could see him maybe lasting, to the end of the month. I mean, July, August, something like that.
Yeah, but if they're going to be 20 games under 500, you might as well carry them out to the end of the season and then get somebody else.
Absolutely. So, I mean, on the bright spot with this Mets team is, again, we've talked about this rookie Pete Alonso. This guy is solid. He just broke the Mets rookie home run record of one Darryl Strawberry. And the kid Darryl had 27 or 26, and Alonso's at 28, and he's on pace to actually break Aaron Judge's record of 52. And you and I talked right before the show, and we said, is that right, 52? 52.
I know.
So this kid is really a big bright spot for the Mets.
Just hope it's not like, my golf game when you play great on the front nine, you go to the back nine and the wheels come off. It's possible.
Or he's like a Joe Charbonneau, flash in the pan back in the day with the Indians back in the early 80s.
Rookie of the year, and
Right.
then he was out of baseball in 2 years.
I don't see that. I think this Alonso really is.
No,
is
I
here
like
to
him
stay.
too. I told you, I thought he was a flash in the pan early on, but I like him too. Actually, I do like him.
Yeah, but the Mets, again, we're staying on them. I think they're now 5 or 6 games under. They're
At least.
dropping. Atlanta is starting to play real well. They're actually pulling away from everybody.
Yeah.
And we'll see what goes on. But the Mets are a disaster right now. No
Right
question.
now they are, for sure. So let's cross the water.
Are the two
27 games in a row with a home run. That's pretty impressive.
That's very impressive. And they're getting contributions from everybody.
I watched the game last night. They were down 2-0. CC was pitching. And the next thing you knew, it was 10-2. And then, of course, they let it get away with, Canely got rocked and so forth. But they got a lineup that's really impressive.
Exactly. So now that Judge is back and Stanton's back, and let's hope that they stay healthy. When you consider the fact that Gleyber Torres may be your number 9 hitter, that's startling. That's a long lineup, and it's a lot of firepower. Again, I'm going to tip my hat to Sanchez, Gary Sanchez. I've really gotten on his case.
And I was ready to kick him to the curb 2 years ago or last year because I thought he was just too lazy to even. But he's having a monster year.
So he came in shape. I think he knew that, but he really has played well. I'm always concerned about him and injury, right? So that's a little bit of a concern, but so far so good. Definitely should be the starting catcher for the All-Star team, no question. And he's playing phenomenal.
I don't know. There's a couple other catchers out there. That,
He leads the league with home runs. His
I mean, he
catchers
threw a
and
pea and threw some guy out last night on the dime. It was awesome.
He's got, I think, 24 homers and 52 RBIs, and we're not even to July. So
Yeah.
he's on a great pace, especially for a catcher. Those are great numbers. Luke Voigt's been very consistent at first base. He's got 17 home runs. He's got probably 50 RBIs
I
too.
think he just hit 50 with he had a 2-run double last night.
And then who goes 4 for 4 last night? Our boy DJ LeMahieu, who is batting now he's batting .330. He has been rock solid.
And you and I
couldn't have
talked
been-
about this. We got him for nothing.
I couldn't be more impressed with him
Oh
for
my
his
God.
overall game, his demeanor. Looks like a great ball player. Love him. I'm
And he's
so
there
happy
for the
with
long
that.
haul.
I am so happy.
He's not going anywhere. So.
Very happy with the acquisition of him.
But how about that home run Carlo hit Giancarlo
Yeah.
last night?
Yeah.
Finally.
Yeah, but he's hit the ball hard. I mean, he had 2 games where he came back, like go for 8, but he has what? 2 of the hardest hit balls. I don't even know.
Oh, the velocity
I don't
thing
put much
again?
stock in that nonsense. I need you to drive in runs and hit home runs and play good defense and stay on the field. Don't get hurt.
Yep.
But so far, so good. Pitching starts. Seems like it's coming back. Tanaka's had 2 good starts. He was kind of mediocre. And CC again. You mentioned him. He just trudges on and pitched well again.
Got a
And-
call last night from one of our fans, Mike down in Naples, Florida. And he goes, is he a Hall of Famer? And I go, 250 wins, 3,000 strikeouts? One of 3 left-handers to do it? Absolutely.
Well, we did a show. I remember this. We did a show a few months ago when the Hall of Fame was announced. We talked about him, and I remember I said, in my opinion, he falls short. But I tell you what, I've been thinking about it long and hard, and I don't want to agree with you for the sake of agreeing.
Where does he fall short then? Tell me
No,
where he falls short.
the 250, but in today's age, it's 300. The fact, again, he's one of 3 lefties, I think you mentioned. With
And
the
they only pitch
3,000.
6 innings now.
Right.
And, and the
But
bullpen can-
he brought a championship home. I think he's got a Cy, and I'm now on the side.
But I loved
think
him.
he's a
When he
Hall
went to
Famer.
Milwaukee after the Cleveland traded him, he says, give me the ball. And, he almost took Milwaukee to the World Series. I just love this guy.
I do too.
I think that's a Hall of Famer for me.
Yeah, and then that's our Mets-Yankee take. Around Major League Baseball, there was one name I wanted to bring up. I forgot to mention last week that I saw. Mike Yastrzemski.
I think we did mention that.
Did we? But I want to
grandson of
Carl.
Carl.
So then I looked up Carl. I know Carl. I was a freshman at Boston University when Carl played his last game in '83. I remember that.
What did he play? 23.
I looked it up. He shares the record with one Brooks Robinson of the Baltimore Orioles with 23 years played, which is the longest stretch of any major leaguer.
Wow.
Right? So I thought it was cool, and if I mentioned it, I'd mention it again. He was one of my favorite ball players, even though he was a Red Sox. But, we always look at genuine great ball players and admire them.
Big time.
So I just wanted to shout out that Mike Yastrzemski is on the San Francisco Giants and had a long minor league career, and he finally got his ticket to the show. So
hit his
cool.
5th home run last week, too. So he's starting to
Yeah.
take his grandfather's genes into the major leagues.
And we've talked about, the home runs this year. So we talked about our boy Christian Yelich. We looked at some stats. He's on pace. He's on pace for 60, and he's missed those 2 weeks. And Cody Bellinger we've talked about. The Minnesota Twins as a team we talked about are
Yep.
on pace to actually shatter the Yankees' record of 247 home runs.
Yep.
That was set last year.
I love it.
So,
There's one thing I wanted to bring up because, it was a terrible thing that happened the other day. This girl got hit in the face with a...
again...
What are they... why is there a delay in putting netting up along the first and third base lines?
I don't know. A couple parks have, right?
Right, but now, so the Dodgers said after that play,
I don't know.
after the season, they're going to review it and put up netting. What are you waiting for? What are you waiting for?
And
when you're
I'm
sitting
full
in the
agreement
seat,
with you. I don't
sitting in the
understand it.
seat, having a beer, believe me, you have no idea there's a net in front of you.
Right.
Right?
Especially after 6 beers. Right? But let's be real. I think for fan safety, now does it take away, obviously, the ambiance or so? That's what Major League Baseball probably thinks.
Okay.
But safety has to come first. There have been some horrific incidents of people getting nailed, little girls. Yankee Stadium, I think it was Todd Frazier.
Yeah, but why hasn't it been mandated
A couple years ago.
That's, from home plate to the foul pole, 30 feet high, that's the rule.
I would imagine Rob Manfred, the commissioner, can just sign a stroke of a pen and get it done.
It's
That would
driving
be
me
my guess.
crazy, because we're going to see this again before the season ends.
Yeah.
But why is that taking so long?
Right. So that's a crazy thing. Yeah.
All right, listen, before we check out of baseball, how about the College World Series?
No doubt.
Michigan, Vanderbilt. How awesome is it?
Right. And the fact that Michigan is in the final dance and they won the title 1962.
Right?
And there is a grandfather who was on that team.
John Kerr, I think?
Kerr, and his son is on the team. And his son has really been a very instrumental part
Jimmy
of it.
Kerr, I believe?
Yeah, he's tearing the ball off the cover, and really he's propelled Michigan. And the other cool thing was Gerald Ford, the 38th president of the United States, was born in Omaha, believe it or not.
Right.
And there is a statue of the ex-president in Omaha that the Michigan Wolverines have gone and visited during, in between games. So I thought that was a cool little, backstory to their trip to Omaha.
But it's great, actually. It's a 3-game series.
Michigan's up 1 game. They won 7-4. They play tonight, so conceivably they could go home. I'm going to give the nod to Vanderbilt tonight. I think they got their stud pitcher going.
I agree.
And
I agree.
I would say this will probably be a 3-game series, exciting thing. And
Maybe the worst uniforms ever in baseball, actually. The Vanderbilts.
could be.
Right?
Could be.
But I saw this thing about how many, so the team that won the first game in the 3-game series swept 8 times or something, and, they won 9 times,
Right.
but they lost 4 times or 5 times, so you never know.
Yeah, it's
right?
crazy. I'm definitely tuning into that game tonight.
Oh,
I thoroughly
big time.
enjoy it. So good luck to both teams, and we'll have a new college baseball champion in a matter of a couple days.
Oh, and how about that throw from the guy from the right fielder from Michigan? Threw a dart to the third base
Yep.
and
and snuffed the rally and
kind of a
stuff.
Judge thing, Dwight Evans kind of a thing.
Dewey.
Right?
Brian Downing or Dave Parker in the All-Star game throwing Brian Downing out in 1979. That was really, I don't care if it was an All-Star game, that was one of the best throws I've ever seen watching Major League Baseball.
I think that was in Yankee Stadium, if I remember correctly.
I think it was in the Dome. I think it was the Dome.
I'm gonna go
So we'll
Yankee
go
Stadium.
check that out. That was just a flash memory I had. You can always look that up. But let's finish with one thing, too, in baseball, and I know we're going long here. I'm going to tell you, a buddy of mine sent me this YouTube audio clip of Tommy Lasorda in the 1977 World Series, Game 4 at Dodger Stadium, when he goes to the mound to take Doug Rauch out, who was the pitcher for the Dodgers.
Yep.
And the audio, I'm going to say, is probably anywhere from 3 to 4 minutes, something
I
like
think
that.
it was 2 minutes and 30 seconds or something.
But we highly recommend you guys Google, go to YouTube.
And we're not gonna express it because we don't usually.
I've been
use
doing my Tommy impression on the side ever since I heard this, but I got to tell you, from a baseball purist perspective, must see listening. It was so funny, riveting, funny, great.
And I sent it to somebody, and they go, "That's the funniest thing I've ever heard." I think it was 2 minutes and 31 seconds of just bleeping it out. He was so.
Oh my
God
God!
Almighty, you're right.
His head was going to explode. So it's well worth the listening.
So what
check
we'll
that
do is Steve will put it up on our. You guys send us an email, and Steve will put up the link because you got to listen to it. Because I'd love to hear your feedback from next week's show because it was so funny.
Absolutely.
I mean, and you always figured Tommy Lasorda was,
Right.
Father Lasorda,
Yeah,
never
on the
swore.
Tonight Show with Johnny Carson.
He was.
What a potty mouth he had.
Oh my God! It was like the baseball version of Scarface.
Absolutely. We can't get enough of it.
I'm glad you brought that up.
I think I'm going to listen to it on the way home tonight. So let's move on from baseball.
All right, before we move on, I just want to say baseball was sponsored by Coriano Trucking Incorporated this weekend.
Sure.
So thank you for that.
Thanks, Guy.
And let's move on.
So the NBA draft was last week,
Yes, it was.
and it went right according to
Well,
prediction.
other than I thought the Knicks were gonna, it was a lock that they were gonna get the number 1 pick, but
Yeah.
they didn't. But the draft itself went
Yeah.
as we thought.
And I tell you, this Zion Williamson, he is such a good kid. I think he's genuine, and it was very emotional for him, thanking his mother. It's the same thing with the top picks. I mean, R.J. Barrett, too, got emotional, I think, with his grandfather or father.
Yeah.
And they're two solid kids. So Zion goes 1, as predicted, and Ja Morant.
Went 2.
The highlights of Ja Morant in college, man. This guy can really play.
It was a pretty good story. Pretty
And
good
that's a good
feedback.
story,
His
too.
father teaching him, and
Yeah.
playing.
Yeah.
That was pretty good.
Absolutely. Good video of that.
Yeah.
And, again, we talked about the Anthony Davis trade. But I think New Orleans is going to do fine with Zion and the Lakers haul, and they got some picks still. And so we just wanted to touch on that real quick. And especially the point was how genuine these kids were, thankful. But you made a comment too, and I'm gonna let you actually say it. What's gonna happen to them eventually?
Who?
Anybody who goes to the NBA.
I just hope it does. Like I said, remember when Kevin Durant first came into the league and Kyrie Irving came into the league? They were just exactly like Zion and RJ, and now
Right.
you don't even want anything to do with these guys.
That's right. So,
I hope that
hope
doesn't
not.
happen.
I hope not too. But, so we'll see. Free agency, I think, is within the week. I think they need to decide.
Ugh.
So we'll cover that when it comes. I really don't have a prediction, but I will go out on a limb and say Thompson and Durant will stay in Golden State. That's my guess now. Kawhi, we don't know where he's going to go, but he may just stay in Toronto for
Do you
a
know
year.
one thing I didn't understand? I thought Kawhi Leonard was older than he is. He's only 27 years old.
Yeah, he's going to be 28 in a couple of days. You're
Yeah.
right.
That blew me away. I
Yeah.
thought he was, 11 years in the league, so he was,
Yeah.
29, 30, 31.
He's a fantastic player. He's got a
Ah.
lot of miles to go.
We did.
Giannis and Harden.
I'll give you kudos, Steve. You got that one.
Listen.
I thought there was no way that Harden wasn't getting the MVP, but I said I thought Giannis was a great player and he deserved it, but I just didn't think that the writers were going to give him to him, and they did.
They did. So
Quite an emotional speech last
very
night.
much.
Actually.
He's a good kid. I'm not taking anything away from Harden, but the fact that Milwaukee won 60 games and got to the Eastern Conference Finals really on the back of this kid, because I probably already forgot who else is on the Bucks, right? Because we already
Middleton.
Yeah, but
these
the
guys,
point is, this is his team, and let's see, it could be the first of several for him going forward.
Harden must be steaming. Right
Absolutely.
now. I mean,
He's
steaming.
fighting with Chris Paul, he's fighting with management, and now he's really pissed. So,
If he didn't get it
but he had a
this year,
great year. I'm not knocking him at
right?
all.
But if he didn't get it this year, he's never getting it.
Maybe not. But,
He's never getting it.
I mean, if you thought he hogged the ball this year, where do you see next year?
Oh my God! But that speech by Giannis was awesome.
Yep.
And listen, before we go off the draft, how about the Knicks? Kyle Guy,
Our boy Kyle Guy from Virginia.
which we were a little
the-
surprised he came out early
Of
and
the
stuff.
national champions, but we were fans of him. We talked him up during the tournament.
Yep.
I have no problem taking a flyer on him. We'll see what
What
happens.
was he, like the 45th pick or
second
something?
round? But
Yeah.
yeah. And the next got a kid from Michigan, Brazikis, something like that, big kid. But the thing obviously is R.J. Barrett. And we already talked about they got 2 max slots. We'll see how the chips fall there.
Yeah, I
but
don't-
they are a long, long way
Way
away.
from playing. Exactly.
Meaningful basketball.
Agreed.
Correct.
So our NBA talk was sponsored by Lynch Toyota of Manchester, Connecticut.
Yep.
Thank you, Lynch.
Thank you, Mike Lynch.
So let's move on. You and I before the show we talked about the NHL draft.
Right. And
Take it
listen,
away, buddy.
And that kind of went according to plan as well.
Yep.
The top 2 picks were Jack Hughes, who
Was he a BC or a
no,
BU
actually,
guy?
it sounds. Doing the research on him, he played for like the national development team for the USA, and he broke all sorts of records. He had like the highest point total in goals and points. So I found, I'm like, really?
Where did he play college, though?
I want to say he got drafted. I think he was Michigan. Okay, but the fact is, he's a center, very skilled, fast skater, and the Devils took him number 1. The Rangers picked number 2, got a great pick.
I'll give you the mic to pronounce his name.
We're
'cause
going
I
with
don't know.
Kako.
Okay.
So he's an 18-year-old Finnish left winger who can put the puck in the net. He's got good size. It's a good pick for the Rangers, good pick for the Devils. This could be like a Sydney Ovechkin thing, maybe a little rivalry.
Woo.
We'll see, because they're that highly touted.
That's a bold statement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and then obviously, as you move down the draft, you're drafting players all over the world. So those are really the top 2 picks, and part of the Rangers rebuild. They made a nice trade during the week. They got Jacob Trouba, who's a solid defenseman from Winnipeg, and really he wanted to be a Ranger. But this guy's solid, 25, 26.
I didn't even see that. Who'd they give up for him?
Well, they traded Kevin Hayes during the season to Winnipeg late as part of the sell-off. They got the 20th overall pick from Winnipeg, and in turn sent back the 20th overall pick to Winnipeg to get Jacob Trouba. So it's a good move for them. And then the Devils matched that with trading for PK Subban. former Canadian,
Oh.
Nashville Predator.
Kind of a thug.
Yeah, but they didn't really give up much to get him. They actually probably gave up 2 second rounds. They gave up a Steve Santini, and they gave up really next to nothing for him.
But he had his moments when he was on Montreal.
I think he's
mean,
on the downside. He's still a solid player, but I don't see him, Norris Trophy talk.
Not even close.
I know.
Not
So,
even close.
but the Devil Ranger rivalry is going to heat up in the next couple of years again. Looking forward to it.
Listen, I'm actually, I told you, when they made all these trades and got rid of these guys and for the Rangers, it was a rebuilding thing, and I think they're right on the plan is.
They are doing a great job doing this. And again, I mean,
They got a great coach. I told you, I'm a huge fan
Quinn.
of Quinn.
Yeah.
Huge
David
fan.
Quinn. And JD, we talked about, is now the president of the organization, which is a great move for stability. And Jeff Gorton is the GM. So he's the one who's really pulling the purse strings. But the Rangers, I think, will be back in prominence in probably another 2 years or so.
2 years.
They got to let the kids grow. They got some money, I think, now. Again, I've talked.
But what do you think we're going to do in the goal, in between the pipes? What do you think?
I don't think he's movable. We just owe him too much money. And
But you don't think somebody would take him off your
unless
hands
we
for
want
a
to pay
draft
it.
pick?
We're not paying 10. He makes a ton of dough,
Oh,
and
yeah.
he's immovable. So I think he's got 2 more years left. And listen, is he a good goalie now? Yeah. Is he as great as he once was?
Is
No.
he the king? No.
No, he's not even a prince now. But the point is, we're stuck with them. We got some Russian goalies in the system. We talked about Georgiev. We talked about.
I like
during
him
the
actually.
season.
I like
And then
him.
we got another Russian that's even more highly touted. So we'll get a kid in the pipes, as the rebuild goes on.
Well, that's going to have to be part of this rebuilding thing. If we're going to be there in two years or 3 years, it can't be Lundqvist in the pipes.
No, it's
No.
just a matter of economics. So.
All right, no, I'm bored.
Yep.
So listen, one other thing before we move on, horse racing, right? You and I talked about this insanity with these horses dying out in
Santa Anita.
Santa Anita and so forth. But there was something that was very beautiful, and I don't know, a lot of people from the U.S. don't know this. The Royal Ascot Racing from Great Britain.
Okay.
The Queen, the Queen Mom rides in on her
Right.
carriage and
Right.
stuff. It's awesome.
I bet.
It is like the Kentucky Derby of Great Britain.
Right. All the
And
pomp and circumstance. Love
Everything. Nothing like it.
it. Right.
Not even Kentucky Derby can rival the pomp and circumstance.
Right.
And it's great. And they run the opposite way. Isn't that strange?
Yeah, that's cool.
But I love it. I didn't get a chance to watch a lot of the races, and I don't know how to bet pounds versus dollars and something.
Euros.
But that's something you guys should watch. Royal Ascot. It's really awesome.
Cool.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Beautiful.
What else we got, Jim?
Well, let's move on to our shout-outs. All right?
Well, that segment was sponsored by Di Filippi's Bakery up in Monticello, New York. The NBA and NHL we covered.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Send us a couple of blueberry pies. We're starving to death here.
That's right. So I wanted to start off our shout out. So again, if you want to comment anything, to contact us, sportswithmono@gmail.com. So this is a shout out to our buddy Corey, who's a loyal listener.
Yep.
And Corey, I happened to see him in person at the draft for the NBA, and he sent us an email. So we had talked about the Belmont, and by circumstance, I talked about Sir Winston, and he pulled it off and got lucky. However, Corey heard the show and actually put a few bucks down on Sir Winston and hit an exacta and won,
Based on my pick, Tacitus,
Right.
which was the exacta the other one.
Exactly. So Corey talked to his family, and they decided that they were going to get a new dog. And lo and behold, Corey is actually, I think, driving to Tennessee this week to go pick up the dog. and we have a picture that Corey sent of the puppy. We found that to be so cool, and we appreciate Corey, sharing that story.
But the feedback was he sent us the email saying, listen, I didn't know what to do. I wasn't certain about this. I didn't do my homework. And he listened to our show, and those are the horses he picked, and cha-ching.
And what is the puppy's new name going to be?
Winston.
Winston Tacitus. So I thought that was cool. We wanted to share that story with our listeners. Thanks, Corey.
And spend your money wisely, buddy.
What do you got?
Well, listen, my neighbors next door haven't heard the show yet, but Bobby and Andrea, they listened to it last week, said, we love this. This is great.
Oh, great.
So welcome aboard to those two.
Welcome aboard, Bobby and Andrea. Thank you so much for listening.
But I love that Corey Cole story. I do. Yeah. I love it.
Fantastic.
And he didn't just win, he didn't win $10 on it, He mentioned 4 digits.
So that's a cool story.
Great. But listen, thanks for joining us this week, guys. And we look forward to following up next week with all the details that we talked about and whatever happens.
Right. We'll be on
between now and then. And thank you for your loyalty and support, and we appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great week. Talk to you on the next show.
Okay, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.